The most dangerous secret in Hollywood wasn't hidden in a studio vault or locked in a producer's safe. It was rattling around in a prescription bottle in John Wayne's jacket pocket, masked by his legendary machismo and protected by the most carefully constructed public image in American entertainment history. On the night of October 15, 1970, at producer Hal Wallis's Beverly Hills mansion, that secret would collide with Dean Martin's reputation for public drinking in an explosion of mutual destruction that would leave both men's carefully crafted personas in ruins. The Duke thought he was making a harmless joke about Dean's famous relationship with alcohol. Instead, he was about to learn that the man he was mocking possessed the most dangerous weapon in Hollywood, the willingness to tell the truth about what happened behind closed doors. The confrontation that would expose John Wayne's hidden vulnerability began with laughter and ended with silence. It started as entertainment industry small talk and concluded as psychological warfare. Most devastatingly, it proved that in a town built on illusion and performance, the person with the most authentic relationship with their public image would always defeat the person trying desperately to maintain a lie. Dean Martin's drinking was real, visible, and honest. John Wayne's pain medication addiction was secret, shameful, and slowly killing him. When those two realities collided at Hal Wallis's party, only one man would walk away with his dignity intact. John Wayne's relationship with prescription pain medication had begun innocently enough. A lifetime of performing his own stunts, combined with the natural wear and tear of being 6 feet 4 inches tall and built like a linebacker, had left Wayne's body a catalog of chronic injuries. His back ached constantly from decades of being thrown from horses. His knees were shot from countless fight scenes where he had insisted on doing his own falls. His shoulders burned from the repetitive strain of drawing guns and throwing punches in hundreds of Western films. By 1970, at the age of 63, Wayne was in constant physical discomfort that would have sidelined a normal person entirely. The solution had seemed reasonable at first. Doctors prescribed Demerol for the back pain, Percodan for the knee problems, and Seconal to help him sleep despite the chronic discomfort. Wayne told himself that he was simply managing legitimate medical issues, that the medications were tools that allowed him to continue working despite his body's rebellion against decades of physical abuse. But somewhere in the late 1960s, the medications had stopped being medicine and started being survival. Wayne couldn't function without them, couldn't get through a day of filming without the chemical cushion that made his pain tolerable and his anxiety manageable. The tragedy of Wayne's situation was that his addiction was invisible to everyone except those closest to him. Unlike alcoholism, which carries obvious behavioral markers, prescription drug addiction can be hidden behind a facade of medical legitimacy and functional performance. Wayne could take his pills in private, maintain his professional demeanor in public, and convince himself that he was simply treating medical conditions rather than feeding a chemical dependency that was slowly consuming his life. Dean Martin's relationship with alcohol was the exact opposite of Wayne's relationship with prescription drugs. Dean's drinking was public, visible, and completely honest about what it was. He drank real alcohol in real quantities, made no attempt to hide it, and built his entire public persona around the image of a man who enjoyed life's pleasures without apology or shame. Dean's drinking was performance art that happened to involve actual alcohol, while Wayne's pill-taking was genuine addiction disguised as medical treatment. The party at Hal Wallis's Beverly Hills mansion on October 15, 1970, was one of those Hollywood gatherings where the guest list read like a directory of entertainment industry power. Wallis, the legendary producer of films like Casablanca and True Grit, was celebrating his latest box office success, and his Bel Air estate was filled with actors, directors, producers, and writers who represented the cream of Hollywood talent. The house itself was a monument to good taste and old money, with crystal chandeliers, Persian rugs, and oil paintings that would have been at home in a European palace. Dean Martin arrived at the party characteristically late, wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo and carrying a martini that he had clearly started drinking before he left his own house. He moved through the crowd with the easy confidence of a man who knew he belonged anywhere he chose to be, stopping to chat with old friends, compliment directors' wives, and tell self-deprecating jokes that made everyone feel more comfortable in his presence. John Wayne had been at the party for over an hour, holding court near the bar with a group of younger actors who were eager to hear war stories from the Duke himself. Wayne was in his element, wearing a custom-made dinner jacket that accommodated his enormous frame and speaking with the authoritative voice of a man who had never doubted his own importance. He was discussing the decline of masculine values in modern Hollywood, lamenting the rise of method actors and sensitive male leads who didn't understand what it meant to be a real movie star. The problem with actors today, Wayne was saying to his captive audience, is that they think acting is about feeling instead of doing. They want to explore their character's psychology instead of just being men. Look at someone like Dustin Hoffman or Al Pacino. They're talented, I'll give them that. But they're not movie stars. They don't have the presence, the authority that audiences expect from a leading man. The group around Wayne nodded appreciatively, understanding that they were receiving wisdom from one of the last representatives of classic Hollywood masculinity. Wayne's opinions carried enormous weight in the industry, not just because of his box office success, but because he had come to embody a particular ideal of American manhood that was becoming increasingly rare in the more psychologically complex films of the early 1970s. It was at this moment that Dean Martin approached the group, drawn by the sound of Wayne's distinctive voice and curious about what the Duke was pontificating about this time. Dean had heard similar speeches before from Wayne, and while he didn't necessarily disagree with all of Wayne's points, he found the Duke's tendency toward moral lecturing increasingly tiresome. "What's the diagnosis, Doc?" Dean asked with characteristic humor, referring to Wayne by the nickname from their successful collaborations in Rio Bravo and El Dorado. "Are we curing Hollywood, or just complaining about it?" Wayne turned to greet Dean with a smile that seemed genuine, but carried an undertone of something less friendly. "Dean, we were just discussing the importance of authentic masculine performance in modern cinema, the kind of real, honest characterization that audiences can believe in." There was something in Wayne's tone that suggested he was making a point about authenticity that might not be entirely complimentary to Dean. The younger actors in the group sensed tension in the air, but weren't sure what was causing it. Dean raised his martini glass in a mock toast. "Here's to authentic performance, then. May we all be exactly who we pretend to be." Wayne's smile became tighter, more forced. "That's an interesting philosophy, Dean, though I have to wonder how authentic a performance can be when the performer is half in the bag most of the time." The comment was delivered with a laugh, as if it were a friendly joke between old collaborators, but everyone present understood that something sharper was happening. Wayne was publicly questioning Dean's professionalism, suggesting that his drinking affected his ability to do his job. Dean's response was immediate, and delivered with the kind of calm that suggested he had been waiting for exactly this moment. "At least when I'm half in the bag, John, I know exactly what I'm putting in my body. Can you say the same thing?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. The younger actors in the group didn't understand the implication, but Wayne's face went through a series of changes that suggested Dean had touched on something very sensitive. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dean," Wayne said, but his voice had lost some of its customary confidence. Dean took a sip of his martini, never breaking eye contact with Wayne. "I'm talking about knowing what keeps you functional, John. I'm talking about being honest about what you need to get through the day. I'm talking about the difference between social drinking and medical necessity." The words were chosen with surgical precision. Dean wasn't directly accusing Wayne of drug use, but he was making it clear that he knew something about Wayne's private habits that Wayne would prefer to keep private. Wayne tried to regain control of the conversation through bluster. "Are you suggesting that I have some kind of problem with alcohol? Because I can assure you that I drink less in a month than you drink in an evening." Dean's smile was gentle but absolutely ruthless. "I'm not talking about alcohol, John. I'm talking about whatever it is that rattles in your jacket pocket when you move. I'm talking about the little pharmaceutical friends that help you get through those long days on the set when your back is killing you and your knees feel like broken glass." The accusation was delivered so quietly that only the people standing immediately around them could hear it, but its impact was devastating. Wayne's hand instinctively moved toward his jacket pocket, a gesture that confirmed everything Dean had implied. "I take medication for legitimate medical conditions," Wayne said, his voice tight with defensive anger. "That's completely different from showing up to work drunk." Dean's response was swift and merciless. "Is it, John? Because from where I'm standing, we both need chemical assistance to do our jobs. The only difference is that I'm honest about it, and you're not." The truth of Dean's statement was undeniable and horrifying. Both men were using substances to manage the difficulties of their professional lives. But Dean was open about his drinking, while Wayne was hiding his prescription drug use behind a facade of medical legitimacy. Wayne tried to draw a distinction that would preserve his moral authority. "Prescription medication is medicine, Dean. It's treatment for legitimate physical ailments." Alcohol is a recreational drug that impairs judgment and performance. Dean laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. John, we both know that what you're taking isn't just for physical pain anymore. It's for the anxiety, the pressure, the fear of getting old and losing your place in this business. It's for all the same reasons I drink, except you're getting your drugs from doctors instead of bartenders. The psychological insight was devastating because it was accurate. Wayne's prescription drug use had indeed evolved from pain management to comprehensive anxiety control, and Dean's analysis of his motivations was uncomfortably precise. "You think you're better than me because your addiction is legal?" Dean continued, his voice still quiet but now carrying an edge that everyone present could feel. "You think that having a prescription makes you more legitimate than someone who drinks openly, but you know what the real difference is between us." Wayne stood frozen, unable to respond to Dean's psychological dissection. "The difference is that when I drink, I don't pretend I'm not drinking. I don't hide behind medical excuses or claim that my vodka is medicine. I don't lecture other people about authenticity while I'm popping pills in bathroom stalls. I'm exactly what I appear to be, a guy who drinks too much and doesn't apologize for it." The younger actors who had been listening to this exchange were beginning to understand that they were witnessing something that went far beyond professional disagreement. This was personal destruction disguised as conversation, psychological warfare conducted in the language of Hollywood networking. Wayne made one final attempt to maintain his moral superiority. "At least my medication doesn't affect my ability to perform my duties professionally." Dean's response was immediate and final. "Doesn't it, John? Because I've seen you on set lately. I've seen the shaking hands when you think nobody's looking. I've seen the way you disappear to your trailer between takes. I've seen how you need those little pills to get through a simple dialogue scene without sweating through your makeup." The accuracy of Dean's observations was confirmed by Wayne's expression. Everyone present could see that Dean wasn't guessing or speculating. He was describing what he had personally witnessed. "The difference between us," Dean concluded, finishing his martini, "is that I'm comfortable being an honest drunk. You're miserable being a secret addict." With that final assessment, Dean turned and walked away from the group, leaving Wayne standing among the younger actors who had just watched their idol get systematically dismantled by someone they had always viewed as a lightweight entertainer. The silence that followed Dean's departure was profound and uncomfortable. Wayne stood there for a moment, his hand unconsciously moving toward his jacket pocket again, before mumbling an excuse about needing to find the bathroom and walking quickly away from the group. In the bathroom, Wayne locked the door and pulled out a small prescription bottle containing Percodan tablets. His hands were shaking as he opened the bottle and took 2 pills dry, swallowing them without water. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw not the strong masculine icon that audiences admired, but a tired, aging man who couldn't get through a social conversation without chemical assistance. Meanwhile, Dean had found his way to the bar, where he ordered another martini and began chatting with director Howard Hawks about their upcoming project. To anyone watching, Dean seemed completely unaffected by his confrontation with Wayne, as if exposing a fellow star's prescription drug addiction was just another part of an ordinary evening's entertainment. But those who knew both men understood that something fundamental had changed. Wayne's moral authority, which had been built on the image of authentic American masculinity, had been revealed as performance supported by pharmaceutical assistance. Dean's reputation as a casual drinker had been recontextualized as honest self-awareness in a business full of hidden addictions and medical deceptions. The story of the confrontation spread through Hollywood with the speed that only truly scandalous information achieves. Within a week, everyone in the industry had heard some version of what had happened at Hal Wallis's party. The details varied in the telling, but the core narrative remained consistent. Dean Martin had exposed John Wayne's prescription drug use in response to Wayne's criticism of Dean's drinking. The impact on Wayne was immediate and devastating. His carefully constructed image as the embodiment of honest American masculinity was undermined by the revelation that his strength was chemically assisted. Directors who had valued Wayne's authentic screen presence began to question whether that authenticity was real or pharmaceutically enhanced. Studio executives who had relied on Wayne's dependability started worrying about his ability to complete projects without medical complications. More significantly, Wayne himself began to question the foundation of his own identity. If his strength was dependent on medication, if his confidence came from a bottle of pills, if his ability to project masculine authority required pharmaceutical assistance, then what did that make him? The self-doubt that had been lurking beneath his public persona suddenly became overwhelming. Dean Martin, by contrast, found his reputation enhanced by the incident. His openness about his drinking was reframed as honesty in an industry full of hidden addictions and secret dependencies. Directors who had previously worried about Dean's professionalism began to see his drinking as refreshingly straightforward compared to the hidden complications of prescription drug addiction. The confrontation also highlighted a broader truth about Hollywood culture in the early 1970s. The entertainment industry was awash in various forms of chemical dependency, from alcohol to prescription drugs to recreational substances, but the ability to maintain professional function while managing these dependencies had become a crucial skill. Dean's public drinking was easier to work around than Wayne's hidden pill-taking because everyone knew what they were dealing with. 6 months after the party, Wayne entered a private rehabilitation facility for prescription drug addiction, though the studio publicity departments described it as treatment for exhaustion and back problems. The rehabilitation was successful in that Wayne was able to reduce his pharmaceutical dependence, but it was too late to repair the psychological damage that Dean's words had caused. Wayne never confronted Dean about the incident, and Dean never acknowledged that it had happened. Both men continued working in Hollywood, occasionally crossing paths at industry events, but they never collaborated on another film and rarely spoke directly to each other. Their friendship, which had survived professional competition and personal differences, couldn't survive the exposure of Wayne's deepest insecurity. In his later years, Wayne would occasionally reference the importance of honesty and authenticity in interviews, but those who had been present at Hal Wallis's party understood that these weren't philosophical observations. They were admissions of regret about the gap between his public image and private reality. Dean Martin continued drinking openly for the rest of his career, but those who worked with him noticed that he had become more strategic about when and how much he drank. The confrontation with Wayne had taught him that even honest drinking could be used as a weapon against him if he wasn't careful about maintaining his professional standards. The night John Wayne mocked Dean Martin's drinking became a cautionary tale in Hollywood about the dangers of attacking someone's visible weakness when you have invisible weaknesses of your own. It demonstrated that in a business built on image management and public performance, the person with the most authentic relationship with their flaws would always have an advantage over someone trying to hide their dependencies behind socially acceptable facades. In the end, the confrontation revealed something profound about the nature of strength and weakness in Hollywood culture. Dean Martin's drinking was a visible vulnerability that he had transformed into part of his charm and authenticity. John Wayne's prescription drug use was a hidden vulnerability that he had tried to disguise as medical necessity, but which actually represented a deeper insecurity about his ability to maintain his iconic image without chemical assistance. When those two approaches to managing personal weakness collided, honest vulnerability proved stronger than hidden dependency. Dean Martin's willingness to be public about his flaws gave him power over someone who was trying desperately to maintain a perfect image, while secretly struggling with the same kinds of chemical dependencies. The Duke had learned that mocking someone's openness about their weaknesses was a dangerous game when you were hiding weaknesses of your own. And Dean Martin had proved that sometimes the most devastating response to an attack isn't denial or counterattack, it's simply telling the truth about what everyone already knows, but no one has been willing to say out loud. In Hollywood, where image is everything, Dean Martin had demonstrated that sometimes the most powerful image is the one that doesn't pretend to be anything other than what it actually is.